and give you the most important things that you can take and use right away. Before we get rolling here, let me go over some of the housekeeping items for those of you that have not been on our webinars before. Everyone is on mute, but we may be unmuting you at the end of the presentation so you can voice your opinion or your question or your thoughts so everyone can hear them. Feel free to write questions throughout the presentation. In fact, the more questions you write, the easier it is to then address things later on in the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and you will get a copy of it. And that's about it. Those are our housekeeping items. So why don't we get started? Again, the topic today, responsive design versus straight to mobile. What is responsive design? Here's what it is in theory. A means of designing and coding a single website so that it offers an optimal viewing experience across all devices. That's responsive in theory. In reality, responsive design is a framework of code that relies on media queries, fluid grids, and flexible images in order to rearrange content to be easily viewable regardless of screen size. Says basically the same thing, but a little bit more complicated, right? Because responsive design is. And we're going to get into it right now. So why is responsive design so great? One of the biggest things that people love about responsive is that it's one set of code. Only one URL, consistent branding, and easier to update. And let me go back to this for just a second. When we talk about one set of code, it's because you're designing a site from scratch, from the beginning. So you're going to build all the code all at once for one specific URL, and as you design, obviously it will be fluid and it will change across screen sizes for that consistent branding. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that was clear. One of the benefits. Also, the fact that it's more SEO friendly. Because there's no redirect. Because when you dial up a site on your phone and it lands on a responsive design website, it's actually landing on one set of code, one website. So when you've created SEO for your desktop, you're actually creating it for tablet and mobile, and Google really, really likes that. You'll hear about that in just a few seconds here. So another great benefit is that it's SEO friendly. You heard me say a second ago something about redirects. And that's something you get with straight to mobile. With responsive, there are no redirects. It knows that you're coming to the site from a mobile device and it's pulling up the site because it's just one set of code. So below here, as I'm kind of speaking about what's not happening, is that this is a nice graphic that talks about how servers speak to smartphones, back to servers, back to smartphones. So the process, how it works. With responsive design, it's one set of code, right? So what happens is when you pull up the site, you're going to get it. It's just resized, right? And I'm kind of keeping this up here for everyone to read. It's a pretty cool graphic. Gives you some pretty cool information there. But that's the basic understanding of it. All right? Let's keep going. Let's talk about the unfortunate truth. You know, what responsive doesn't do is it doesn't change according to purpose and experience. Now, we just finished doing a webinar a couple weeks back on designing for that first experience. This is some of the graphics from that webinar because it's really a good point to make here. So We got somebody that's unmuted because we can hear him typing. So, team, let's mute everyone so we don't hear everyone typing. Sorry about that. So, bounce rates for mobile devices are 9.5% higher than that on desktops. Why is that important here? Because what you'll find out is that when you're designing just for and again, responsive, when you're designing responsive and everything resizes to screen size, then you're going to have the same effect on your desktop as you do on mobile, and you want to keep people engaged. So if they're bouncing off of your desktop site, you're not doing anything any better when you just make it responsive. You haven't designed for a specific platform or a specific, I'm sorry, for a specific device and a specific purpose. You've just made it responsive, okay? Something else we want to talk about is the difference in page views. Now, obviously, this seems like something that we don't really need to talk about, but we want to make a point. Give me one moment. We're hearing some feedback from people leaving some notes that the audio is really off. Give us just 1 second to see if we can fix that.
I had like 10 different people. Everybody just. Jason can't hear you.
So nobody could hear anything. Hold on 1 second, guys. For those that can hear me, hold on for 1 second. So the whole presentation, nobody heard anything.
It doesn't seem. I can hear you perfectly.
Okay. Give me 1 second.
As if it's totally normal.
Okay. Let me check. Let's here and go again. All right. Will you go back and see what people are saying? See if people are back to action. Everyone that's on the presentation, I apologize for kind of stopping right in the middle. We had some people letting us know that there's audio problems. If you could please respond now. Let me know if you guys can hear everything okay. If not, we'll have to change to a different microphone to present from. So if everyone could please write in your thoughts and your feedback as to if everything is coming through okay, and we're going to get right back into it. So I apologize for the hold up. Still?
Easy fix. You have to start the broadcast.
Shut up.
You got to start the broadcast. Show my screen.
It is. I'm showing it.
All right. Well, you got to start over.
So nobody could hear anything.
Just start from the beginning. I'm starting you right now.
Go ahead.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So nobody heard anything? Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Alex Kotishin. I'm the Director of Business Development at Fiddlefly. Today we're going to be talking about responsive design versus straight to mobile. Again, thank you everyone for joining us, and for those of you that were here early, we apologize for starting this off a little bit later than expected, but again, thank you, and thank you for your patience. We do these webinars on a regular basis, so for those of you that have been here, thank you for joining us again. And for all newcomers, let me go over some of the housekeeping items so that you guys understand how this process is going to work. Everyone on the presentation is currently on mute. So if you have any questions, please write them into the chat or into the question box. And in fact, we encourage it. The more questions we get, the better the presentation gets, because we address those questions at the end. And even though you're on mute, we may unmute you so you can share your idea and thoughts with everyone, so everyone can hear it, because you may be addressing somebody else's issues as well. This presentation is being recorded, so each of you will get a copy. Everyone that's attending will get a copy of the presentation. So that's about it for the housekeeping things. Thank you again for joining us. Very excited to share this with you. I got to tell you, we got a big audience online today from all over the world. So we're excited to present this information to you. And why don't we jump right into it? If you've been on our webinar before, you guys know that we give you the most important things that you can grasp and use right away. Give you tangible things that you can turn into real advice and real solutions for yourself or your customers. What is responsive design? In theory, responsive design is a means of designing and coding a single website so that it offers an optimal viewing experience across all devices. In reality, responsive design is a framework of code that relies on media queries, fluid grids, and flexible images in order to rearrange content to be easily viewable regardless of screen size. Responsive design is a really interesting idea, incredible concept, and we're going to uncover today the pros and cons of that, and of course talk about STM, or straight to mobile. So why is responsive design so great? Let's talk about this quickly. One set of code. Pretty simple. Got to update just one set of code, right? One URL. Also a good thing. Consistent branding. I designed for desktop. It's available for tablet and mobile. That's cool too. Easier to update. Again, that kind of talks about the one set of code. Some of the reasons responsive is great. Let's keep going. It's SEO friendly. Google loves responsive design, and we talk about Google as search, so we're going to really mention them a couple times through this presentation. Responsive is SEO friendly because when you design for desktop and you put all the different things, all the tags and descriptions and everything that you need to put to make the site SEO friendly, it's even friendlier when it's responsive because you're not redirecting to any other sites, which again you'll hear about in just a second. It also helps avoid mistaken redirects. You've heard me say redirect twice now, and we'll hear about it, but this is kind of a nice visual to understand what's happening behind the scenes from a server talking to a smartphone, and a server communicating and what it can do, and it's basically the process. It's a nice little visual for the process. I'll take a second for everyone to take this in because it's really cool little visual. And so you guys understand, responsive doesn't have the redirects, so that's a benefit. It's one site, one code, one URL, goes right to the mobile experience or the tablet experience when you dial it in. Okay, let's move forward. Hopefully everybody read that. That's a pretty fun little visual. The unfortunate truth, responsive, again, in theory, is great. In practice, has some difficulties. And one of those things is because it doesn't respond to purpose, it responds to screen size. It responds to the device, right? But not to why you and I are there. And because mobile devices have a higher bounce rate, it's pretty important for us to be able to design to a specific device, specific purpose for why the users may be coming there. Also, since we're going to be visiting less pages on average on a mobile device than desktop, we want to think about that. And since responsive just kind of resizes and rearranges things, you're going to get a lot of pages and a lot of content that may not be necessary for mobile. And that's important. Again, less pages, more bounces. We want to make sure we cater to the audience, which brings us to our point here that mobile versus desktop is different. Mobile web is action web. Things that you do on a mobile device all lead to an action, or what we like to talk about as an outcome. Desktop is research web. The psychology between the two are so different that we're seeing mobile fail in so many places because people look at mobile just like it's desktop. As a matter of fact, people design what we like to call traditional mobile, or AKA desktop on mobile, and they're wondering why they're failing, why it's not really doing anything for them. There's a big psychological difference between mobile and desktop. One is action, one is research. Very important to understand. Makes all the difference in the type of response and the type of outcomes you get. With responsive, recoding an entire site is a pretty big project. And it's important to understand that responsive, it's a brand new philosophy. It's something that developers and designers and communicators need to understand. and need to really learn. And because it's so delicate, because responsive is one code, you make a little error and it creates big problems across all the devices. So little errors that you have to fix can be detrimental, and we're going to show that in just a second with some visuals. This is one that really gets people to kind of sit back and go, oh, let me rethink this. If you have an established site and you want to go responsive, well, besides it's going to be a huge project, you actually have to start from scratch. You have to redesign, redevelop, rethink, rewrite the entire website, your entire digital footprint. Here's a couple of examples of responsive design gone bad. Any of you sneaking a peek at the company there? You see that? MySpace? We all remember MySpace. Here was MySpace attempt at responsive and a huge failure. What they tried to do was create a responsive site, and what you're seeing on screen right now is the little minor error that caused big problems. Problems to the point that they had to take down the site, send you to their app, and or just give you a video to watch. What you're seeing is supposed to be the font resized and not being blocked by the menu. The full screen should be available to see all the buttons, but they're not. If they would have taken a straight to mobile approach, or if they would have spent a little time, which we know they did. We know they spent a lot of time on this. It's just understanding the huge amount of work that goes into responsive, and making one little error can cause what you see here. So let's move on to the next one. AdAge. Now this is an organization that we love. We follow them. We think they're great. AdAge is one that dots the I's, crosses the T's, and is really attentive to everything they do. So when we found out that they took a stab at responsive for one of their events and completely missed the mark, we were in shock. But this goes to show how difficult and how much of an investment it is, not just financially, but resources and time, not just developing, but also testing and retesting, that they've made a mistake. As a matter of fact, this site is so broken, it's completely useless. That may be the reason why they hid it, and it was so difficult for us to even find. But all of the links on this site would lead back to the homepage, so you couldn't register. Most of the links you can't even see, so you can see that on the desktop it shows speakers, agenda, sponsors, highlights, press, and other things. They're not even seen. You can't get to them. So one error, big problem. Let's talk about straight to mobile. So we just heard about responsive, all the benefits and some of the issues that you could face. Definitely some really cool things that responsive can do for you. And we, of course, just finished looking at some ways that if you are not extra careful, it can cause some major issues. Let's talk about straight to mobile. With straight to mobile, you choose, you cater, you design, you develop, you create the experience the way you want it to be for the purpose that you want the site to have. In the situation with TRX, they have lots of different options on their desktop. We sat back and decided and discussed and discovered the biggest purpose and the biggest reason. And we chose just two simple navigations. So let me pull back. Discover and shop. With straight to mobile, you're catering to your audience. You understand why your audience is on a mobile device, and you're going to cater to that experience. For Prometheus, the most important thing was to give somebody an opportunity to find a property. We don't want them to go anywhere else. On mobile, that's all we want them to do. Once they've started the process, then they can venture out on the site and see some more things. But here, the most important action, the most important outcome is for you to search, and find a place for you to live. We're catering to the experience. We just talked about Prometheus and TRX. Wanted to really briefly go over a client by the name of Flirt. It's actually a product from Maggie Sotero, which is one of the largest and best bridal, homecoming, and prom designers in the United States. For this, we had a simple outcome also. We wanted the young lady that's going to land on this site to visually choose her direction and not have to find her way to navigate around the site. So clearly, we've marked where they're going to go and what to expect. This is very important. We understood the outcome, and we've catered to that with the straight-to-mobile experience. So what are some of the pitfalls from straight-to-mobile? Because looking at it, it's like, hey, Alex, that makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't we cater to our audience? Why wouldn't we always design, develop, create, message specifically to our audience on a specific canvas at a specific time? Of course you'd want to do that. But we want to talk about some of the things to consider when you're doing that. Because in straight-to-mobile, remember that redirect word that we talked about? With straight-to-mobile, you're actually designing another website, a completely new website that you're going to connect. You're going to make a fork in the road, and when somebody's coming from a mobile device, they're going to get the mobile site. When somebody's coming from desktop, they're going to get a desktop site. So it's actually something to consider. You know, it's people don't think about it all the way, but it is something to consider that you're building two different sites. All right? So one of those things is making sure that you copy and paste the code in the right place. SEO. Google really recommends responsive because it's easier for them. We all need to understand that. It's easier for Google. Now I know people on the other line right now or that are listening are going, yeah, well, we got to make Google happy. You're right. We do need to make Google happy, because if they're unhappy or if they don't like how we've done things, they're not going to serve us up as easily. Well, here's a quick tip here. It's very easy to use straight-to-mobile and continue to get the same results. As long as you copy and paste the code in the right place, you're going to have very, very good success on SEO. It's just easier for Google to like responsive. But when executed properly, straight-to-mobile is just as powerful. Separate sites to update. Okay. So this is something that we've had some internal discussions here, and we want to make sure that it's clear. When you build separate sites, you do have to update each one separately. Unless you build the mobile site on the exact same database as the desktop site and choose the pages that you want to be updated automatically. Okay? That's it. Build on the same database. When you update one, they'll both update. Now, of course, not all the pages from desktop are going into mobile, so you don't have to worry about those pages. So it's actually a pretty simple solution for that. Here's the other great thing. Some people may look at this and say, hey, I got to update 2 sites. Oh man, I don't know if that's a difficult, good thing or bad thing. Here's the bottom line. It is such a big benefit to have control of your message on multiple devices. Because remember, the psychology behind why you visit desktop and the psychology behind why you visit mobile is completely different. So why would you say the same things? Why would you give them the same experience? Why would you want them to have to think desktop on mobile and mobile on desktop? You wouldn't. You'd want to be able to speak to people because of the specific purpose and outcome that you want from each specific device. So because you have that control with STM, it is actually incredibly beneficial. All right? I hope that made sense. It's a really fine line and an important lesson in this entire presentation to understand that having the ability to specifically manage each device for a specific purpose and outcome is a huge benefit. Moving on. So it's decision time. We just heard about all the great things about responsive. We also heard some things that they're not so great. We heard some great things about STM. We also heard some things that could be a little more difficult to manage. Let's talk about when to go in which direction. When you're starting from scratch, when you don't have a website, or when you're going to completely level it and start from the beginning, and the site's pretty simple, then responsive could be a really good option, right? If you have the time, the money, the resources, the ability to test and retest, and you're going to redesign the entire presence anyway, responsive is probably a good option. When you're focusing on one specific device to reach an outcome, let's say, for instance, most of your business comes from desktop, and we'll pinpoint a specific industry like service, software as a service. A lot of software as a service companies really want you to get on their desktop because that's where you're going to really be sold and interact and engage. They may focus on desktop, and the fact that they're building responsive is just checkbox to check off for people when they're on other devices. But they're really focusing on desktop. That's a good idea to go responsive. When you don't care about the purpose of those other two as much, that's a good time to go responsive. Focus on one, you get the other two anyway. And flip that, retail and restaurants. Very soon you'll find that retail and restaurants are going to focus strictly on mobile, and the other two are just going to be to check off a box. Okay? When to go straight to mobile. You want to go with STM when you have a specific outcome you want from your experience for your customers. Okay? If you're an agency and you're building sites for your clients, and each one of your clients has a specific purpose and they're selling a service or product, and you want there to be an outcome, a different one from desktop, tablet, and mobile, you want to go STM. You want to go STM because you can control that message, what we just talked about, and you can really pinpoint the outcomes. If you're going to be doing a lot of promotions, if you're going to be marrying traditional, which by the way is excellent, we're doing a test campaign right now with out of home, and it's incredible results. Adding mobile to all traditional advertising increases the effectiveness of that advertisement. It's absolutely amazing. If anyone's interested in finding out more on, marrying traditional to mobile, we have incredible information about that. We can do it offline. Make sure right now you type in some of those questions, because the results and outcomes for that is tremendous, and we'll be able to follow up with you after this presentation, or in general a later time to talk about that. But it's great information. But anyway, mobile landing pages, mobile microsites are incredibly important to build in STM. Why? Well, if you're advertising something or promoting something, radio, TV, billboards, print, whatever, you're looking for an outcome. There's something you're looking for someone to do. So when you're building for outcome, you're building with what? Straight to mobile. Very important. This kind of goes back to outcome. Almost everything here kind of goes back to outcome. Straight to mobile is right for those that are looking for an action. All right. Maybe you don't want somebody to buy something or visit your store. Maybe you want them to share something. Well, you can control that message, and you can make that an action item, and you can do that easier with STM than responsive. Finally, and I briefly went over it, but I'll talk about it a little bit more here. When the user experience is so much more important than the ability to manage your digital assets, then STM is the right solution. When what I get on my end as your customer is a great experience, and that's what you want to give me, and not make your life easier because you have to change one line of code instead of two, STM is the right solution. Marrying philosophies. Until responsive design evolves to become powerful and concrete enough to truly reformat content intelligently, best practice is to use both methods. What does that mean? That means when you're building for desktop, design for desktop specifically with an outcome in mind, but build that desktop site using responsive methods. There are different size screens. You want to think about those things. When you're designing and building for mobile, design and build for mobile specifically, but because there's different size screens, use responsive methodology to do so. That's a beautiful philosophy. That's what we believe is the best marriage between the two. Let's not discount one or the other, but when we bring them together, we can have incredible results. When you're designing just one specific landing page, just for one thing, maybe it's one campaign, maybe it's time sensitive, simply because of the time, money, and resources that are available at any given moment, it is always better to go with STM. Remember, if you can use some of that responsiveness in that standalone, great. But that's something important to understand. Here at Fiddlefly, we actually offer both options. We have clients from all walks of life, and we're available for them for whatever they need. Agencies come to us for projects for their customers. Direct customers come to us because they need to redesign and redo something. 100% of the time, so far, we've used STM. Once we've talked about all the different options and time and money and benefits, and again, we offer both. Our clients make the decision with us together, and it's been STM so far every single time. Our philosophy, what we believe. We believe that mobile is truly all about experience, and mobile is all about outcomes. And those outcomes come from great design that's engaging. With great mobile, which is talking about those outcomes and designs, you actually get to drive action. You control what's happening. Like I said earlier, we're doing this incredible research and projects, live projects. They're not research that's not in the real world, real live projects with controlling the messaging on mobile and understanding the psychology of people, and we've had unbelievable results. I mean, truly, mobile has taken the lead in action-driven campaigns. So great mobile is all about outcomes, and you can drive measurable outcomes. When you design and communicate properly, guess what you do? If they like what they see, they see a clear path to a solution or an action, you decrease the bounce rate. The best thing about that, since more people take action on mobile, the less they bounce, the more results you get. And since mobile was born from marketers and communicators and advertisers, we love it. As a matter of fact, we're working on a white paper right now that will turn into a book sometime down the road, which is the psychology of mobile and why we love it so much. When you create for a specific outcome with a purpose on this mobile canvas, you increase the amount of people that come back. And we don't say it in here, but guess what? You actually increase the amount of people, the way that people share. So this is our philosophy. We believe mobile is this incredible new platform, this incredible new canvas, that if we begin to understand it and the psychology behind it, which is the most difficult thing for people to understand, that you can create incredible outcomes. I mentioned this before, just a second. I just want to kind of point it out for just 1 second more. Responsive has a place in design. Our own experience has been that STM has worked for every customer that we've dealt with. But there is a solution for it, or I'm sorry, there is a place for it, and it needs to be used in specific areas which we mentioned. But for ourselves, we've had better success. For our clients, and of course making a decision together with STM. So why are we here? What is Fiddlefly? We're all about support. Fiddlefly believes that mobile is an incredible platform for communicating and driving an action. And we love the psychology. As a matter of fact, every day that I wake up and come into this office, we like to take on new challenges for our clients, truly enjoy the challenge of learning, sharing, and then scaling for our customers. We work with a lot of designers, marketers, and agencies. And all we do, we have a little other philosophy here, is our mission is to support your mission. So if you have a lot of customers, if you're an agency, if you're working on the design team, we help scale your business. We help with education, some similar to what you're seeing now. We also help with doing the heavy lifting. A lot of agencies just come to us because they have so many projects and they don't feel like starting them over and they want to go straight to mobile. They come to us for that purpose. Customers come to us simply because we align our interests. We love mobile. We understand it. They need someone that does that. So if you fit into one of these things and you want to have conversations post-webinar here, we wanted to make sure that you understand why we're responsible for putting together these webinars and how we can align our interests and how we can share our visions, philosophies, and psychology of mobile with you to help you grow your business. Our whole focus is mobile and to support your growth. So at this point, I'd like to thank everyone for coming to the webinar, and I'd like to address some of the questions because we've had some really good engagement from everyone on the call today. And one of my associates is going to share with me some of the questions that you guys have been asking. And he's going to either do that one of two ways. He's going to either unmute himself and ask it out loud, or he's going to bring the question to me, and I'll ask it for everyone. But I hope, while he's putting that together, everyone enjoyed the presentation and got some really good things out of it. And I got the paper in my hand. So, Dave Hester, is it? Had a question about designing to an audience. Mike, if you could please unmute Dave. Dave, if you're not shy and would like to ask the question in more detail for everyone, that would be great. So, Dave, you're unmuted if you want to ask the question so everyone can hear it.
Yeah, so I think maybe as I got through it that what I was calling adaptive is what maybe you guys call straight to mobile. But the idea being it's a combination. It's not just the responsive, but if you put that in conjunction with adaptive, which people have been doing forever when browsers act differently. You say if it's this browser, do that. You can do the same thing with devices. So it's adaptive design with the responsive elements, and you can kind of get the best of both worlds. And I think that's, after we got done here, I think that's what you're talking about with what you call straight to mobile.
Yeah, so